Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is Mastering Office Meeting Discussions. You know the feeling. I mean, I know you do. We've all been there. You walk into a sterile, gray conference room, or, in the modern version of purgatory, you log into a Zoom call.
Right.
And the title of the invite is something incredibly vague, like Project Update or Team Sync. You have your coffee, you're ready to actually do some work, but then, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes in, you feel it happening. Your soul just starts to leave your body. You're sitting there listening to someone read a document at you, word for word, that you could have read yourself in an email 3 days ago.
And you probably did, or at least you were supposed to.
Supposed to, yeah. And then 45 minutes later, you leave the room with absolutely zero decisions made. Your energy is just drained, and your to-do list is completely untouched. It's the zombie meeting. It's walking around. It's making noise, but it's dead.
It is the universal corporate pain point. It's fascinating because if you look at the theoretical structure of almost any organization, meetings are supposed to be the backbone.
They're supposed to be, yeah.
They're the primary mechanism we use for communication, for decision-making, for, strategic alignment. They are supposed to be where the work happens.
Right.
And yet, if you poll the average employee or even the average executive, they will tell you that meetings are often the single biggest productivity killer in their week. They're the thing that prevents them from doing the work.
That's the irony, isn't it? We feel like we're working around our meetings rather than through them.
That's a great way to put it.
We survive the meeting so we can get back to our desks and actually produce something. But today, we're not just here to complain. I know it feels good to vent, and we could probably spend an hour just sharing horror stories. But we have a different mission.
I think we do.
We're taking a deep dive into a stack of insights that claims we can actually fix this. The goal here is to transform these time drains into the most productive, high-energy part of the work week, which honestly sounds like a very tall order.
Yeah.
I'm a bit skeptical. Can we really fix something so fundamentally broken?
It sounds ambitious, I grant you that, but it is entirely possible. The mistake people make is thinking that a good meeting happens by magic, or because you bought better donuts, or because everyone is in a good mood.
Right. It's not about the snacks.
It's not about the snacks. It doesn't happen by magic. It happens by engineering. When you analyze the best practices from high-performing organizations, places that move fast and break things, effective discussion rests on 3 specific pillars. If you get these right, the meeting works. If you miss even one, the whole structure just collapses.
Okay, let's unpack this. I like the idea of engineering a conversation because it implies we can control it. It's not just luck. So what are these 3 pillars?
They are purpose, preparation, and participation. It sounds elementary, I know, but let's really look at what happens when they're missing.
Okay.
If you have no purpose, you get directionless wandering, just people, chatting about the weekend or complaining about the coffee.
A coffee shop meeting. Nice, but it's not work.
Not work at all.
Okay.
Then, if you have no preparation, participants can't contribute meaningfully because they're hearing the information for the first time, in real time. They are reacting, not thinking.
I see that all the time. Just gut reactions, no deep thought.
Just gut reactions. And finally, if you have no balanced participation, you get groupthink, or you get a situation where one loud voice,
the boss, usually, or that one super confident person.
Usually, yeah. The boss or the most extroverted person dominates the room, and you completely lose the collective intelligence of everyone else.
Okay, I want to dive deep into each of those, but before we get to the mechanics of agendas and rules and all that, let's talk about the people. Because ultimately, a meeting is just a group of humans in a room or a virtual room trying to interact. And humans are. But we're messy.
We are very messy.
We have egos, we have insecurities, we have these weird brain wirings that get in the way.
That is the crucial starting point. We are psychological creatures first and employees second. And this is where it gets so fascinating. You have to understand the psychology of the room. The moment we enter a group setting, our behavior changes. We step onto a psychological stage. We're performing.
So even if we're smart, capable professionals who know our stuff, our brains start playing tricks on us the moment we sit around that table.
Specifically so. We are subject to a whole host of cognitive biases that can completely derail a discussion without us even noticing.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, take confirmation bias. This is a big one. This is where we instinctively favor information that supports what we already believe. So imagine a team goes into a meeting thinking a project is going great. They love the project, they're invested in it. They will latch onto the one tiny data point that says success And they will subconsciously ignore the 5 data points that are flashing red and saying, warning.
They don't even see them.
They aren't lying. They
Yeah.
literally don't see the risk because their brains are wired to protect their existing belief. It's a mental shortcut that backfires.
That's dangerous. Because you walk out of the room thinking everyone agrees, but you've just agreed on a fantasy.
You've reinforced a shared delusion. And then there's the social pressure, which is maybe even more powerful, the bandwagon effect.
Peer pressure for adults.
That's a great way to think of it. It's incredibly powerful. If the first 2 people in a meeting agree on something, or, and this is key, if the boss speaks first and gives an opinion, the probability of everyone else aligning with that view skyrockets.
So we're just wired to conform.
We are wired for social cohesion, not necessarily for truth-seeking. We want to belong to the tribe more than we want to be right. It's a survival instinct from a long, long time ago.
That's a scary thought. I mean, in a business context, we're prioritizing getting along over getting it right. That leads to bad decisions.
It leads to disasters.
So how do we fight that? I've heard about this concept of psychological safety. It gets thrown around a lot in HR circles, and sometimes it sounds a bit soft, like we all need to hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
I know what you mean. It can sound that way.
But I know there's real hard data behind it. It's not just a feeling.
There is immense rigorous data behind it. You might recall Project Aristotle.
That was the big Google study, wasn't it? The one where they tried to build a perfect team.
That's the one. In 2012, Google embarked on this massive initiative to figure out the perfect formula. They studied 180 teams across the entire company. They looked at everything. They crunched data on IQ. They looked at technical skills. They looked at personality mixes, introverts versus extroverts. They even looked at how often people ate lunch together.
Wow, they were really trying to find the secret ingredient.
They were. And they thought, logically, that the best teams would be the ones with the smartest people.
Which makes intuitive sense. Get the Avengers together, get the PhDs and the coding wizards in one room, and surely you win.
That was the hypothesis. But the data didn't show that. Not at all. They were confused for a long time because they had these super teams of geniuses that were performing terribly, and then they had these, mixed bag teams of average performers that were absolutely crushing it.
So it wasn't about raw brain power.
It wasn't. Eventually, after looking at all the data, they found the pattern. The number one factor, the secret sauce that predicted high performance more than anything else, wasn't IQ. It was psychological safety.
So define that for us in a practical sense, because I think people hear safety and they think comfort. They think it means nobody gets challenged or criticized. What does it actually look like in a Tuesday morning meeting?
It is definitely not about being comfortable or being nice. In fact, it's often the opposite. Psychological safety means an environment where you feel safe to take a risk.
An interpersonal risk.
An interpersonal risk, spot on. It means a junior employee can look at a senior executive and say, I think that assumption is wrong, or I think this data is flawed, without fear of being embarrassed, marginalized, or, punished for it later.
So it's the belief that you won't get your head bitten off for speaking up.
Or for being wrong. It's the belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking.
That is a huge shift. I think many of us operate in environments where we feel we need to be perfect. We feel like if we ask a question, they look stupid. Or if we disagree with the boss, we're being difficult. So we stay silent.
And that silence is fatal for innovation. Better outcomes come from vulnerability. They come from people being willing to say, I don't know, or I made a mistake, or I have a crazy idea that might not work, but here it is. If you don't have that safety, you just have a room full of people nodding, protecting their own status, and that is where bad decisions happen. You need the friction to get the polish.
Okay, so we need to build that safety. That's the foundation. But we can't just sit around feeling safe. We need to actually get things done. Let's move to that second pillar, preparation. This seems to be where most meetings fail before they even start.
Without a doubt.
I feel like most people prep for a meeting about 2 minutes before it starts, usually while walking to the room or clicking the Zoom link.
And that is precisely why they fail. Effective preparation starts with the objective. Think about the calendar invites you get. How many of them just say team sync or marketing update?
Most of them. It's just a vague title. It tells me nothing about what is expected of me. Am I supposed to bring ideas? Data? Am I just listening? I have no idea.
It's a recipe for failure. A vague title leads to a vague discussion. You need crystal clear objectives. Instead of discuss marketing, the invite should say, decide on Q2 budget allocation.
That is a completely different vibe. One is a topic, the other is a mission. One feels like a chat, the other feels like work we need to do.
Spot on. There is a great rule used by some high-growth startups called the startup rule for agendas. It's so simple. Every single item on the agenda must be labeled with one of three verbs: decide, discuss, or inform.
I love that. Decide, discuss, or inform. It forces you to know why you are talking about something.
It does. Inform means I am just telling you something. We don't need a huge debate. We can clarify, but it's one way. Discuss means we are brainstorming or exploring options. We're in an expansive mode. Decide means we need to walk out of here with a choice made. We're converging.
That clarity must save so much time.
There was a case study where a company implemented just this labeling rule, nothing else, and they reduced their meeting times by 40%.
40%, just by adding a verb. That is incredible efficiency.
It creates alignment before anyone even says a word. If I think we are here to decide and you think we are here to just chat, we're going to be frustrated with each other. I'll be pushing for a conclusion and you'll be pushing for more options. The label fixes that instantly.
Now let's talk about the agenda itself. Because usually an agenda is just a list of bullet points that nobody looks at. It feels like a formality.
That is the poor agenda. It looks like this. Marketing budget, 15 minutes. That tells you nothing. An effective agenda treats the agenda as a roadmap for the conversation.
So what does that look like?
It would look like this. Marketing budget decision, 15 minutes, led by Sarah Chen. Objective, approve $150 K allocation for the new campaign.
So it provides the who, the what, the why, and the timing. It's a mini brief for each item.
It is. And here is a key insight regarding the order of items. Most people put the easy stuff first. They do the housekeeping, the announcements, the warm-up.
Now you ease into it.
That is a mistake. You should prioritize agenda items by importance, not ease. Do the hard, heavy cognitive lifting at the start of the meeting when everyone's energy is high. Don't leave the critical decision for the last 5 minutes when everyone is checking their phones and thinking about lunch.
That makes total sense, but it's so counterintuitive. We like to ease into things. But you're saying hit the gym and do the heavy squats first.
Get the hard work done when you have the brain power to do it.
Now, there's another concept here that I find really challenging but also fascinating. The pre-read culture.
This is a game changer, but I will warn you, it requires serious discipline. You see this at certain high-performance financial firms and tech companies. Amazon is famous for this.
Okay.
The rule is simple. We do not use meeting time for information transfer.
So no PowerPoint presentations where someone just reads the slides. Because that is my personal nightmare, sitting there watching someone read bullet points that are right in front of my face.
None. Zero. If you have information to share, you write it down, sometimes as a formal 6-page narrative, sometimes as a deck, and you send it out days in advance. And here's the kicker. If you haven't done the pre-reading, you cannot attend the meeting.
Wow, that is strict. If you didn't do your homework, you can't come to class.
But hold on, let's play devil's advocate here. In the real world, people are swamped. They are back-to-back in meetings all day. If I send a 6-page document to the VP of sales, is she really going to read it on Tuesday night? How do you actually enforce this without just canceling every meeting?
That is the real-world friction. You are right. People are busy and old habits die hard. People don't read. So the smartest organizations have adapted this. They use what's called the study hall method.
Study hall, like in high school.
Exactly like in high school. The meeting starts, and for the first 15 or 20 minutes, there is total silence. Everyone sits there and reads the document together.
That sounds incredibly awkward, just sitting in a room with your boss in complete silence. It feels awkward for the first time you do it, yes. But think about the benefit. You guarantee that everyone has actually read the material. You guarantee everyone is starting from the same page with the same context.
Ah, I see.
And then when the 20 minutes are up, you don't spend time summarizing or presenting. You jump straight into debate, analysis, and decision-making. It shifts the focus from passive listening to active dialogue.
That is actually brilliant because it removes the excuse. You can't say I didn't have time because we just gave you the time. It respects everyone's time by condensing the learning phase and maximizing the doing phase.
Correct. It multiplies the value of the interaction time you have together.
Speaking of time and people, let's talk about the guest list. There is this tendency to invite everyone. I better invite Mike from accounting just in case, and Lisa from sales so she doesn't feel left out. Suddenly you have 18 people in the room.
The dreaded meeting bloat. And we know from the data that as group size goes up, individual contribution and accountability go down. It's social physics.
And people hide in the crowd.
They do. So you need to apply the contribution test. You should look at every single name on that invite list and ask, does this person provide unique information? Do they have specific expertise we need? Do they have decision authority? Or are they directly responsible for implementing the outcome?
And if the answer to all of those is no,
then they shouldn't be there. They can read the notes later. Being a good steward of the company's time means not inviting people who don't need to be there.
but people get offended. They feel out of the loop. They think, why wasn't I invited? Am I not important? There's a whole political layer to this.
There is, and that's why you need a system to manage expectations. You can't just silently drop people from invites. One really actionable tip is the color coding system for invites. You mark attendees as red, yellow, or green.
Okay, break that down for me. Red, yellow, green.
Red means required. You must be there. We cannot make the decision or have the discussion without your input. Yellow means optional. You are welcome to come if you are interested or feel you can contribute, but you are not essential. We will proceed without you. And green means informed. Do not attend. We will send you the summary and action items.
I like that because it gives the yellow people permission to skip without looking like they're slacking off.
It empowers them.
It tells them, hey, we value you, but you don't have to be here. Use your time wisely.
Indeed. It empowers people to manage their own time. It stops the FOMO, the fear of missing out, which is a huge driver of meeting attendance.
Okay, so we've prepped. We have the right people, the right agenda, and the pre-read is done. Now we are in the room. This is where the rubber meets the road. You're the facilitator.
Okay.
How do you manage the flow when you have such different personalities? You have the loud extrovert who thinks out loud and the quiet introvert who has the best idea but won't say it unless asked.
This is the art of facilitation. And it truly is an art. You have to recognize the archetypes in the room. Introverts often process internally. They need silence or a specific invitation to speak. They need to think before they talk.
Yeah.
Extroverts are the opposite. They process by talking. They energize the room, which is great, but they can also suck all the air out of it. And then you have your analytical thinkers who just want more and more data and can refuse to move on until they have it, which leads to paralysis.
So how do you level the playing field? Because usually the extrovert wins just by volume of speech.
You have to use structural techniques. You cannot rely on just saying, hey, does anyone have anything to add? Because the introvert will never jump into that free-for-all.
They're waiting for the right moment that never comes.
It never comes. So one technique is the round robin. If you are discussing a critical issue, don't just open the floor. Go around the table, ask everyone one by one for their perspective. Sarah, what do you think? Mike, what's your take on this?
This guarantees the introvert gets the same airtime as the extrovert.
Simple, but really effective. It forces the distribution of speech. No one can hide and no one can dominate.
Another technique which I love is silent thinking time. It sounds awkward, but it's incredibly powerful. You say, okay, here's the problem. We're going to take 2 minutes of total silence to write down our initial thoughts before we speak.
2 minutes of silence in a meeting? That feels like an eternity.
It does at first, but what it does is it neutralizes the extrovert's advantage of speed. The extrovert usually wins because they speak first. By forcing a pause, you give the introvert the processing time they need to formulate a brilliant, well-thought-out answer.
That's powerful. It stops the quickest thinker from winning just because they're quick. Speed doesn't equal quality.
Not at all.
What about rules? Do we really need ground rules for adults? It feels a bit like kindergarten. Raise your hand, don't hit.
We do, because adults still fall into bad habits, especially under pressure. Rules prevent the most common pitfalls. One of my favorites is the Vegas rule.
What happens in the meeting stays in the meeting. Specifically regarding half-formed ideas, you want people to feel safe throwing out a crazy concept or stupid question without fearing that someone will quote them out of context by the water cooler later. Can you believe what Bob said? So dumb.
Right.
The Vegas rule encourages honesty and experimentation. If I say this, Mike is going to tell everyone I'm an idiot, I'll just keep my mouth shut, and maybe the best idea is lost.
That goes right back to psychological safety. It's all connected.
It's all connected, just so. Other good rules are challenge ideas, not people, and assume positive intent. If you explicitly state these at the start, it gives you permission as the facilitator to correct behavior later. You can say, hey, remember, we are attacking the problem, not the person. It depersonalizes the conflict.
Speaking of attacking problems, let's talk about conflict. Most people hate it. We want everyone to get along. We want a nice, smooth meeting where everyone agrees. But you are suggesting that artificial harmony is actually bad for business.
Artificial harmony is a disaster. It is the silent killer of companies. It means we are all smiling and nodding while the ship is sinking right under our feet. You need constructive conflict. Good leaders have to explicitly give permission to disagree.
So you have to say it out loud.
You should literally say, I want you to poke holes in this. Tell me why this is a stupid idea. What are we missing?
But how do you engineer that if people are too polite or too intimidated? If I'm the boss and I say, here's my plan, nobody wants to be the one to say your plan sucks.
You have to gamify it. You can formalize the role of the devil's advocate. You assign someone the job. You say, Julie, for the next 10 minutes, your only job is to tell us why this plan will fail. Even if you love it, I want you to attack it.
I love that. It gives her a shield. I'm not being mean or negative. I'm just doing the job you gave me.
Precisely. It removes the social stigma of negativity. Another brilliant technique, this one from Amazon, is using written narratives instead of presentations.
The silent reading, the study hall.
Yes, but think about the other benefit. When you read a proposal silently, you are judging the idea on its own merits. You're not influenced by the charisma or the presentation skills of the person speaking. It separates the idea from the presenter.
That's a great point. It levels the playing field between a great talker with a bad idea and a nervous speaker with a brilliant one.
And then there's the pre-mortem.
I've heard of a post-mortem, where you figure out why a patient died or a project failed after the fact. What is a pre-mortem?
You do it before the project even starts. You gather the team and you say, okay, everyone, imagine it is 6 months from now. It is February 2026. This project has failed spectacularly. It was a total disaster. Let's go around the room and write down why, what went wrong.
That is such a clever psychological trick.
It is, because it allows people to raise their real concerns disguised as hypotheticals. Instead of saying, I don't think your marketing plan will work, which feels personal and confrontational, they can say, well, in this future where we failed, it was because the marketing plan didn't convert with the target audience. It surfaces all the hidden risks that people are usually too scared to mention.
It makes being pessimistic constructive. Love that. Now, moving on to another tool in the facilitator's kit, questions. We all know the lazy way to ask questions. You finish a presentation, you look around, and you say, any questions? And what happens?
Silence. Crickets. Total silence.
Every single time. Why is that?
And the silence happens because any questions is a binary question. It's really a yes-no question, but it also implies that if you have a question, maybe you didn't understand. It puts the burden on the listener to admit a gap in their knowledge, which nobody wants to do.
So we need to ask better questions.
You need to ask specific types of questions to drive depth and engagement.
Give us some examples. What are these better questions?
Well, you can start with open-ended questions. Instead of, do you agree, which is just yes, no, ask what factors should we be considering here, or what are the potential consequences of this approach? This invites exploration. It demands a sentence, not a nod.
It forces engagement. You can't just nod along.
Correct. Then you have probing questions. When someone makes a claim like, this is the best option, you ask what evidence supports that, or can you walk me through your reasoning on that? You are digging into the logic. You aren't attacking them. You are just asking to see the map of how they got to that conclusion.
That keeps people honest. It stops people from just stating opinions as facts.
It does. You can also use redirecting questions. If one person is talking too much, you can say, Jen, thanks for that. That's a great point. Mike, how does this connect to your research? You are physically moving the spotlight to someone else in the room. It's a gentle way to manage participation.
And hypothetical questions. You mentioned those.
Yes, these are great for unblocking creativity when a team feels stuck. If budget wasn't a constraint, what would we do? Or if we had another 6 months, what would be possible? It temporarily removes the barriers so people can dream a little and maybe find a new path forward.
I read about a nonprofit board that changed just one question, and it changed everything for them.
Yes, this is a classic story of the power of a good question. This board was stagnant. They were just going through the motions. They would show up, review the minutes, vote yes on everything, and go home. The chair realized they were sleepwalking.
So what did they do?
So instead of asking the standard, do you approve these minutes? Or do you approve this plan? The chair started asking a new question at the end of every meeting. What is the most important thing we aren't talking about?
Ooh, that gives me chills. What are we not talking about?
It completely changed their strategic direction because it gave everyone permission to discuss the elephants in the room. It forced them to look at their blind spots, the uncomfortable truths they had been avoiding.
That is the power of a good question. It unlocks the door to a better conversation. But even with good questions, things can go wrong. Let's do some troubleshooting. What do you do when the conversation goes totally off the rails? The tangent trap. We've all been there. You start talking about Q3 strategy and suddenly two people are debating the font size on the new website.
This happens all the time. Someone brings up a valid point, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the agenda. The first thing is to quickly differentiate between a valuable tangent that reveals a hidden, important issue and a simple distraction. Usually, it's a distraction.
How do you handle that distraction without shutting the person down and making them feel stupid? You don't want to say, "Shut up, Bob, that's irrelevant."
You use the parking lot.
It's a classic. But how do you do it without it feeling dismissive? Because sometimes it feels like the parking lot is where good ideas go to die.
You have to do it visibly. That's the key. You have a whiteboard or a shared document open, and you physically write down the off-topic idea where everyone can see it. You say, "Bob, that is a great point, and we need to address it, but it's outside our scope for today. I'm putting it in the parking lot to ensure we cover it later."
So it validates the speaker, they feel heard, they see their idea written down.
They feel heard, and it creates a commitment to return to it. But it allows you to ruthlessly move the conversation back to the agenda.
And what about the technical deep dive? Two engineers start arguing about API integration in the middle of a high-level strategy meeting.
For that, you use the 2-minute rule. If a technical disagreement or a deep dive takes longer than 2 minutes to resolve, you stop it. You say, "This is getting too deep for this group. Let's you two take this offline and report back with a recommendation." You cannot hold the rest of the room hostage for a niche debate.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the person, the dominator, the guy who just loves the sound of his own voice? He has an opinion on everything, and he's not afraid to share it at length.
Handling the person who won't stop talking requires what I call diplomatic firmness. You have to interrupt. That's the first thing to accept. You cannot wait for them to stop because they won't, but you interrupt warmly.
Give us the line. What do we actually say?
You say, "Thanks, James, that's a key point. I want to pause you there because I want to make sure we hear from Maria on this before we move on."
Nice. So you validate them first, key point. Then you pivot. I want to hear from Maria.
Yeah.
It's not a rejection.
It's a redirection. And here's a pro tip. Talk to chronic dominators outside the meeting. Most of the time, they're not trying to be jerks. They are just passionate, or they think they are helping by filling what they perceive as awkward silence.
Right. They might not even realize they're doing it.
Often they don't. If you tell them privately, "Hey, your insights are great, but I really want to get the junior team to speak up more in these meetings. Can you help me by holding back a bit and creating space for them?" And they will usually become your ally. You turn them from a problem into a co-facilitator.
That is a great leadership move. Now let's talk about the opposite of talking too much, thinking too much, analysis paralysis. The meeting where you talk in circles for an hour and end with the same conclusion as last time. Let's get more data.
The enemy of progress. You have to accept that perfect information does not exist. You will never have 100% of the data. The most useful concept here comes from Jeff Bezos. Reversible versus irreversible decisions.
The one-way and two-way doors.
Correct. A one-way door is a big consequential decision you can't easily come back from, like, selling the company or firing an entire division. That requires deep, slow analysis. But most decisions, probably 90% of them, are two-way doors. If you are wrong, you can just walk back through the door. You can revert the change.
So things like choosing a software vendor or a marketing slogan.
Just so. If it's reversible, you should decide quickly with the data you have. The facilitator should literally ask the room, "Is this a two-way door?"
And if the group is still stuck, even on a two-way door decision,
then you use a decision-forcing mechanism. You state a default action. You say, "Okay, team, if we cannot reach consensus by 10 a.m., the default action is that we will proceed with option A."
that puts the fire under them. If they really hate option A, they will be highly motivated to force themselves to agree on option B or C.
The fear of the default action forces the team to choose. It breaks the deadlock and stops the endless circling.
Now, we need to talk about the elephant in the room, or rather the elephant not in the room. We can't ignore the modern reality: virtual and hybrid meetings. The nightmare where 3 people are in the office conference room and 4 are on Zoom. This is where I feel most organizations are failing miserably right now.
Hybrid is the hardest format. It is exponentially harder than fully remote or fully in person. The risk, as you said, is that you create a two-tier class system. You have the first-class citizens in the room who can see each other, read body language, and have little side conversations. And then you have the second-class citizens on the screen who are basically just watching TV. They are ignored, they can't break into the conversation, and eventually they just tune out and start checking email.
I've been the person on the screen. It's awful. You try to speak, but two people in the room are laughing at a joke you didn't hear. And by the time you can get a word in, the conversation has moved on. You just give up.
Yeah.
So how do we fix that? Is it even fixable?
It is, but the solution is controversial and requires discipline. You have to embrace the equal access principle.
Okay, what's that?
The rule is, if even one person is remote, everyone should join from their own laptop, even the people who are sitting next to each other in the conference room.
Wait, really? So we are sitting next to each other at the table, but we are looking at our screens and talking into our headsets. That sounds ridiculous.
It feels incredibly awkward, yes. It feels unnatural and a bit silly the first few times. But think about the equity it creates. If everyone is a box on the screen, everyone has the same pixel real estate, everyone has the same audio quality. It prevents the people in the room from having side conversations that the remote people can't hear. It completely equalizes the playing field.
I can see the logic, even if I hate the visual. It forces the in-person people to experience the meeting the same way the remote people do. It builds empathy.
Exactly. If you don't do this, you will succumb to proximity bias. It's a proven psychological phenomenon. You will instinctively favor the people you can see physically. You will listen to them more. You will give them more opportunities. You will even promote them more often. The one laptop per person rule kills that bias.
That is a bold move, but I can see why it's necessary if you truly care about your remote talent. What about cameras? On or off? I feel like Zoom fatigue is a real thing.
It is very real. Staring at your own face in a mirror all day is psychologically exhausting. Generally, you want to encourage cameras on for visual cues because so much of communication is nonverbal, but you have to be humane about it.
So no strict mandate.
I wouldn't recommend a police state on cameras. Allow cameras off for certain types of meetings, like information sessions where you're just listening, or give people permission to turn them off for a few minutes if they need a break. It's a balance between engagement and preventing burnout.
Okay, the meeting is over. We survived. We made decisions. We didn't kill each other. But the work isn't done. We need to talk about what happens after. Because usually what happens is nothing. The meeting ends, everyone runs to the next one, and all the ideas and agreements just evaporate into the ether.
This is where 90% of the value evaporates. You need documentation. But please, not a transcript. Nobody reads transcripts. Do not send out a 10-page Word doc of everything that was said. It's useless.
So what should the notes look like then?
Effective notes need 3 things, and only 3 things. Decisions made, action items, and key context. That's it. And ideally, you do this with live collaboration. Put the Google Doc or the OneNote on the screen during the meeting, type the notes where everyone can see them as you go.
So that way, if you get something wrong, someone can shout, "No, that's not what we decided. We decided the opposite."
Accurately. You correct errors immediately, not 3 days later when everyone's memories have faded and distorted. It also keeps people focused because they can see the official record being created in real time.
And let's talk about those action items. I feel like this is where tasks go to die. Someone writes down, "Sarah will look into vendors." That goes on a list and is never seen or heard from again.
That is a terrible action item. It's vague and has no accountability. You need the action item formula. Who plus what plus by when plus a specific deliverable.
Give us the good version of Sarah will look into vendors.
The good version is Sarah will evaluate vendors A and B and present a 1-page cost analysis PDF, that's the deliverable, to the team by March 15th. That's the by when.
So specific deliverable. Cost analysis PDF, not just look into.
It's an output. And never, ever assign it to multiple people. Shared ownership means no ownership. If you write Sarah and Mike, Sarah thinks Mike is doing it and Mike thinks Sarah is doing it, nothing happens. Pick one lead. You can say Sarah is the lead, Mike is support, but Sarah is the one whose name is on the line.
There is a prevention question in the source material that I thought was genius for ensuring things actually get done.
This is a fantastic pro tip. When you assign an action item right after you've defined it, ask that person, what might prevent this from getting done?
It's like a mini pre-mortem for the individual task.
It is. It surfaces obstacles immediately. Sarah might say, oh, well, I'm on vacation next week, so that deadline is impossible, or I don't have the software license for the analysis. You solve that problem right then, in the room. One firm saw their completion rates for tasks go from a dismal 60% to over 90% just by adding that one question.
That is a huge, huge difference. Finally, how do we know if we are getting better? How do we measure the success of our meetings?
You have to treat your meetings like a product. You wouldn't launch a product and never check if customers like it or if it works. Use meeting retrospectives. At the end of a recurring meeting, take 5 minutes and ask, what went well? What should we do differently next time?
Or even something simpler.
Even simpler, do anonymous pulse surveys. Just a quick thumbs up, thumbs down. Was this a good use of your time? Or a 1 to 5 scale. If you see a string of 2s on your weekly team meeting, you know you have a problem and you need to change the format. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it.
Before we wrap up, we really need to acknowledge that not all meetings are the same. We have touched on this, but let's clarify the specific formats. A decision meeting is fundamentally different from a brainstorming session. You can't run them the same way.
They are completely different animals with opposite goals. A decision meeting needs structure, criteria, and a push for convergence. You are trying to narrow down to one choice. You want to close options, not open them.
And brainstorming.
Brainstorming needs the absolute opposite. It needs divergence. You want to widen the funnel as much as possible. And the golden rule here is to separate generation from evaluation.
Explain that. Why can't we do both at the same time?
Because creating ideas and judging ideas use different parts of the brain. They are neurologically distinct functions. If you try to do both at once, if someone says a wild idea and you immediately say that won't work because of the budget, you kill the creative impulse in the entire room. You force everyone into edit mode before they've finished write mode.
So generate first, judge later. No criticism during the brainstorm.
No criticism, not even positive feedback. Just get the ideas out. Use techniques like rapid ideation. Ask for 100 ideas in 60 minutes. Quantity creates quality. Tell people, I want bad ideas. I want crazy ideas. I want illegal ideas. You're just trying to get the pump primed. Once you have a massive list, then you put on your judge's hat and start to filter and evaluate.
And finally, the status update meeting. The round robin, where everyone lists what they did yesterday. I answered emails, I had lunch, I did the report. The absolute worst.
The enemy of productivity. My advice is don't do it. Just stop. If that's what your meeting is, cancel it.
So how do we stay aligned? If we don't meet, how do I know what you're doing?
You pivot the conversation. Don't tell me what you did. I can read that on the project board or in a shared document. Focus only on the 3 things that require discussion: exceptions, blockers, and decisions. I am stuck on X because I need Y, or I need the group's approval on Z.
Everything else goes in an email or maybe a video update.
Asynchronous communication is your friend. Use tools like Loom to send a quick video update or post in Slack for the routine stuff. Save the precious synchronous meeting time for the stuff that actually requires human interaction and debate. If you are just broadcasting information, that's an email, not a meeting.
This has been therapeutic. It's amazing to realize that the bad meeting isn't a law of nature. It's just a design flaw. It's bad engineering.
It is a solvable problem. That is the most important takeaway for everyone listening. We accept bad meetings as the price of doing business, but they aren't. They are a choice. And you can choose to make them better.
So let's summarize this. Better meetings aren't about better snacks or nicer chairs or a fancier conference room.
No. They are about psychology understanding things like psychological safety and confirmation bias. They are about structure, the decide, discuss, inform labels, the agenda as a roadmap, and they are about discipline, the pre-read, the parking lot, the action item formula. These are skills. Anyone can learn them.
And if you do learn them, you become leader, regardless of what your title is. Because you were the one respecting everyone's time. You were the one driving clarity and making things happen.
That is the truth. The person who runs a good meeting is a leader. And I want to leave the listener with this one final thought. Take a minute and think about your average week. How much of your work is actually just talking about work?
That's a tough question.
If you could reclaim 40% of your meeting time, which is what the data suggests is absolutely possible with these techniques, what could you actually build? What could you create? What big problem could you solve with all of that reclaimed time?
That is a powerful question. Time is the one thing we can't make more of. Stop wasting it in bad meetings.
That's it for our deep dive today. If you found this useful, please like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. It really helps us out. Thanks for listening.
Hello. Welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast is How to Navigate Job Promotion Discussions.
It is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
It is.
But frankly, it is arguably one of the most critical, high-stakes conversations you will ever have in your professional life.
I completely agree. And honestly, just saying the words promotion discussion makes my palms sweat a little bit. I think for most of us, it's widely considered one of the most nerve-wracking moments in a career. You have that fear of rejection, the creeping imposter syndrome, and then the sheer awkwardness of talking about money and titles.
It's a lot to handle.
It's so much.
It is a lot. And I want to be clear that the anxiety you're describing it's universal.
Oh, good. It's not just me.
Not at all. It doesn't matter if you're a junior staff member or a senior director. Putting yourself out there for that kind of judgment it's terrifying.
It really is.
But here's the problem. Most people view a promotion request as, a request. Like you're Oliver Twist holding up a bowl asking for more soup.
Please, sir, can I have a raise?
Just so. But our mission in this deep dive is to completely reframe that mindset. We are moving way beyond the advice of just go in and ask for it.
Okay.
We're going to break down the deep psychology, the rigorous preparation, the storytelling strategy, and even exactly what happens after you get the answer, whether it's yes or no.
Because a promotion isn't just asking for a better title or a little more cash in the bank account, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's a strategic negotiation.
Negotiation.
Yes. It's about bridging the gap between what you're doing day to day and how the organization actually values that output. It's a business proposal, not a personal favor.
I love that distinction. A business proposal.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this. We need to start with the landscape, the headspace we're in before we even open our mouths.
Right.
Because half the battle is internal, isn't it?
Spot on. We call this the psychological game, and it really is a game played on two fields.
Two fields.
First, there's your headspace as the employee. You're feeling a mix of excitement because, you want the growth, but also this paralyzing anxiety.
Yeah.
You're worried about appearing entitled or pushy.
Oh, that's the big one. The fear of being that person. You think, if I was really good enough, they would just notice me and offer it to me?
Yes.
If I have to ask, maybe I don't deserve it.
That is such a dangerous trap. And while you're spiraling with those thoughts, you have to remember the other player in this game, the manager.
Okay.
Their headspace is completely different. They aren't just sitting there thinking about you. They are juggling budgets, team dynamics, organizational politics.
Their own stress.
Their own boss. They have a million things going on.
So they aren't sitting there plotting your demise.
Rarely. I mean, sometimes they genuinely want to promote you, but their hands are tied by, HR or finance. Or, and this is crucial, sometimes they need a wake-up call.
A wake-up call.
They simply haven't realized you're ready because they're too busy putting out their own fires.
That's a great point. We have a perfect example of this in the material. Let's talk about Sarah. She was a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech company.
Yes, Sarah's story is a classic example of self-sabotage through silence.
Self-sabotage. Wow.
It is, because she spent months, literally months, agonizing over whether to bring up a promotion. She was doing the work, hitting her targets, mentoring junior staff.
Ticking all boxes.
All of them. But she was convinced, absolutely convinced, that if she asked, her manager would see her as ungrateful. She had this voice in her head saying, I should just be happy I have this job.
Which is a feeling I think a lot of us can relate to, especially in, uncertain economic times.
Absolutely. So what eventually happened with her?
She finally, after all this agonizing, worked up the courage to schedule the meeting and initiate the conversation. And the reaction she got was not what she expected.
Not at all. It was shocking to her. Her manager wasn't annoyed. He wasn't dismissive. He leaned back and he told her he had been waiting for her to bring it up.
Waiting? That sounds completely counterintuitive. Why would he wait?
It does. But in that specific company culture, they placed a high value on self-advocacy.
So they wanted to see people take initiative for their own careers.
Just so. The manager's perspective was that he wanted to see that she had the drive and the confidence to ask for what she wanted before he trusted her with the next level of responsibility.
Wow. So her silence was actually hurting her chances. She thought she was being humble and patient.
But she was actually signaling a lack of drive, or at least that's how it was being interpreted in that culture.
That's incredible. The lesson there is that silence can cost you a promotion that is already waiting for you.
It's sitting there with your name on it. You cannot assume your manager is a mind reader.
That is a huge wake-up call. But okay, let's say we're ready. We've decided to speak up. Is there a right time? Or do we just, kick the door down on a random Tuesday morning?
Please do not kick any doors down.
Okay, no door kicking. Got it.
Strategic timing is everything. You have what we call natural windows.
Natural windows.
The most obvious one is the annual performance review. Everyone is already in that mindset of evaluation, so it's a very logical time to bring it up.
Right, it's expected.
But there's a more strategic window, I think, and that's post-project success.
This makes so much sense. Strike while the iron is hot.
Correct. But even within those windows, you also have to read the wider organizational context.
What do you mean?
Well, if the company just laid off 10% of the staff or announced a hiring freeze, that is a flashing red light.
Yeah, probably not the best time.
It doesn't matter how good you are. The environment is just hostile to these kinds of requests. But if the company is growing, celebrating big wins, expanding into new markets,
That's a green light?
that's your green light. The momentum is on your side.
Let's look at Marcus for this one. He was a senior software developer, and he wanted to move up to a team lead role. How did he handle this timing aspect?
Marcus presents a masterclass in timing, a real masterclass. He didn't just walk in because it was his work anniversary or because he felt ready. He waited.
He was patient.
Very. His team was working on a critical product, feature, high stakes, high visibility, the kind of project everyone in leadership is watching.
Okay, a lot of pressure.
A ton of pressure. And Marcus really stepped up. He wasn't the lead, but he started acting like it. He mentored the junior devs, he solved the big technical roadblocks, and because of his leadership, they delivered that feature 3 weeks ahead of schedule.
Which, in software development, is basically a miracle.
It's unheard of. Usually things are late.
Exactly.
So the week after that launch, while everyone was still high-fiving and management was thrilled, that's when Marcus booked the meeting. He used the fresh memory of that incredible success as his leverage.
He didn't have to remind them he was good. They were currently looking at the proof. He was the hero of the moment.
Absolutely. The value was fresh in their minds. And the result? He was promoted 6 weeks later. If he had asked 3 months earlier, when the project was in the messy middle,
The answer might have been, not now, we're too busy.
or just a flat no, timing made all the difference.
So timing is key. But there's another layer here, right? It's not just when you ask, but where you're asking. Every company has a different vibe, a different set of rules.
A different culture code.
Yeah.
You have to decode whether your organization is rigid or fluid.
Rigid versus fluid. That sounds like physics. Break that down for us in a corporate context.
Sure. A rigid organization is usually older, larger, or in a regulated industry like finance or government. They have structured rules.
Like written in stone rules.
Often, yes. You must be in a role for 2 years before moving. You must have this specific certification. You must go through these 3 training modules. It's very box-ticky.
And fluid, what does that look like?
Fluid is your typical startup or an agile tech environment. It's merit-based. Create your own opportunity. If you're good, you move up. Your tenure doesn't matter nearly as much as your impact.
Mixing these up can be a disaster, can it? If you treat a rigid company like a fluid one.
It can be fatal to your request, and we have the perfect, if painful, case study for this. Jennifer.
Okay, let's hear about Jennifer.
So Jennifer came from the startup world. Fast-paced, rapid promotions, you know the vibe.
Right, move fast and break things.
Exactly. And she moved to a very traditional, old-school financial firm.
A big culture shock right there.
Huge. At her old jobs, she'd ask for promotions whenever she felt she'd proven herself. So at the new firm, at the 9-month mark, she walks into her manager's office and asks for a promotion.
Oof. I can feel the awkwardness from
This
here.
hits a brick wall. A hard one.
Because of the unwritten rules.
And the written ones, she had completely ignored the formal HR policy that said 18-month minimum tenure and required training completion for level 2. Her manager was just taken aback.
It probably looked like she hadn't bothered to learn how the company even worked.
That's just it. It looked like she didn't understand the company or respect the hierarchy.
That's tough. So what did she do? Did she quit?
No, and this is why Jennifer is such a great case study. She pivoted. She didn't get angry or defensive. She realized she had misread the culture code.
So she adapted.
She adapted. She put her head down, she enrolled in and completed the required courses, and she spent the next few months building relationships and making sure people knew her work. She waited until the 14-month mark.
Still a little early by the book.
Still a bit early, but she had checked every single other box with flying colors. And this time, when she asked,
It was a yes.
approved immediately, because she showed she could work within their system while still being a high performer.
That is such a good lesson. You can't play startup rules in a corporate game.
Yeah.
Okay, so we understand the landscape, we know the timing. Now we have to actually do the work. We need to prepare.
And this is where most people fail. They really do.
Why is that?
They think preparation is just thinking about what they want to say. Real preparation is building a case. I mean, you cannot build a house without a blueprint, and you cannot get a promotion without what we call a promotion portfolio.
A portfolio. I like that. That sounds tangible, professional. What goes in it?
Evidence. Hard, cold evidence. You need to move from vague claims to specific, undeniable quantification.
Can you give me an example of vague versus specific?
Sure. Vague is, I improved team efficiency. I mean, what does that even mean?
Right. It's an opinion.
It's an opinion. Specific is, I implemented a new project management system that reduced average project delivery time by 23% and cut our rate of missed deadlines from 15% down to 3%.
Okay, that is a massive difference. One is a claim, the other is a fact with data.
Correct. Numbers are hard to dispute, but it's not just numbers, it's also social proof.
Social proof, like testimonials?
Sort of. You want to create a paper trail of praise. You should be saving those emails from happy clients. You collect positive peer reviews. You reference your 360-degree feedback.
You're building a file of evidence.
You're building an airtight case. And we have a superstar example of this. David. He was an account executive who wanted to be promoted to senior.
How did he utilize this portfolio concept?
David didn't mess around. He walked into his meeting with a literal physical folder.
Old school. I love it.
And in it, he had a spreadsheet tracking his performance over the last 18 months. He calmly laid it out. 142% of quota, 96% client retention rate, $2.3 million in new revenue generated.
That is impressive on its own. It's hard to argue with those numbers.
But he didn't stop there. He then opened the folder and pulled out 23 printed emails from clients.
23.
23. All of them praising his specific work on their accounts. He basically said, don't take my word for it. Here's what the people who are paying our salaries are saying about me.
That is irrefutable. How can a manager say you aren't ready when they're looking at a stack of 23 glowing, happy client emails?
Look, they can't. That's the whole point. He made the evidence so overwhelming that saying no would have felt illogical.
But there's a trap here, isn't there? You can prove you're absolutely brilliant at your current job. But that doesn't always mean you're ready for the next job.
That is the competency trap, and it's a really common one. You have to know the target role inside and out. And often what we think the next job is and what it actually is are two very different things.
You mean like assuming a manager role is just doing what I do now but telling other people to do it?
Precisely that. That's the classic mistake. And being wrong about that assumption is fatal to your pitch. You need to do what we call a gap analysis.
A gap analysis.
You need to research the official job description, yes, but that's just table stakes. You also need to go out and interview people who are currently in that role. Find the hidden duties.
The stuff that's not in the HR document.
Exactly. The politics, the budget spreadsheets, the endless meetings. And Lisa did this perfectly. She was a marketing coordinator who wanted to be a marketing manager.
What did she find out?
Lisa was smart. She didn't just guess. She set up coffee chats with 3 different marketing managers in her company. And she discovered that the job wasn't just more marketing. It was 40% meetings, budget planning, and navigating cross-functional politics.
Stuff she had never done before in her coordinator role.
Right. If she had just gone in and asked for the promotion based on her great marketing campaign skills, she might have failed because the manager would have seen that gap, the lack of budget experience.
So what did she do?
Instead, she did the gap analysis first. She realized she was missing the finance piece, so she volunteered for cross-functional projects that had a budget component, and she took an online Finance for Marketers course. She did all of this before she even asked for the promotion.
So she was demonstrating that she was already operating at the next level before she even had the title.
That is the golden rule. Do the job, then get the job. She closed the gap herself.
Okay, so we had the timing, we had the evidence, we've analyzed the gap and started to fill it. Now we have to package it all up.
Now you need a story.
A story.
Humans are wired for stories, not just lists of data. David had great data, but even he needed a narrative to tie it all together. You need a narrative thread.
What does that narrative arc look like?
It follows a simple, powerful structure. Context, where I started, turning points, the challenges I accepted and overcame, impact, the results I got, and finally, vision, where I will take this role in the future.
And a key part of that is impact over activity.
But absolutely, don't just list what you did. That's your resume. List why it mattered to the business. How did it move the needle on the company's goals?
Let's talk about Roberto. He went from junior analyst to senior. How did he tell his story?
Roberto's story was beautiful because it showed a clear journey of growth. He started with the context, acknowledging he was pretty inexperienced when he first joined the company.
So he's showing humility and self-awareness.
Exactly. Then the turning point. He was working on a routine report, and he identified a data discrepancy that everyone else had missed for years.
And that wasn't just a good catch, was it?
No, it was a huge catch. The impact of him finding that error saved the company $400,000.
Wow. Okay, that's a big number.
A very big number. But he didn't stop there. He used that discovery to build a new automated reporting framework that the whole team now uses. He then went on to mentor 5 new hires.
So he wasn't just an individual contributor anymore. He was a force multiplier for the team. He was acting like a leader.
He was. And so the climax of his story wasn't just, can I have a raise? It was a vision. He pitched a plan to use his skills to build predictive models for the department and to formalize the training program he'd already started informally.
So he wasn't asking for a reward for past work. He was selling a vision for future value.
You've hit the nail on the head. He essentially said, promote me and I will build you a better, smarter department.
And the manager said.
The manager later told him that the narrative made the decision easy. It was a no-brainer. It takes the pressure off the manager to judge you and instead invites them to invest in a vision you're both excited about.
That's a huge mental shift.
Yeah,
I love that. All right, the moment of truth. We've prepped, we have our portfolio, we have our story, we are walking into the room. Let's talk about mastering the conversation. How do we open?
With confidence. And this is harder than it sounds. So many people start with an apology. Sorry to bother you, or I know you're busy, but...
We're so conditioned to be polite, we don't want to impose.
But in this context, that kind of politeness sounds like weakness. It undermines your whole case before you've even started.
So what's a better way?
You need a script that is collaborative but firm. Something like, I appreciate you making time today. I'd like to talk about my career progression here, and I'd value your perspective on my readiness for the next step.
That sounds really professional. It's not aggressive, but it's very clear about the purpose of the meeting.
Michael is our case study here. He managed to balance gratitude with intent perfectly. He started by saying how much he valued the opportunities he'd had on the team, which softens the room. It shows appreciation.
Good starting point.
But then he pivoted immediately to, and with that in mind, I want to discuss moving to a senior consultant role.
No ambiguity.
None. If you leave it vague, like, I want to talk about my future, you might get a vague philosophical answer. You need to be specific.
Once we are in and we've opened, how do we present all that data and all those stories we collected?
We use the STAR method. It's a classic for a reason. Situation, task, action, result. It gives your story structure and keeps you from rambling.
It keeps the manager from getting lost in the details.
Exactly. But the pro tip here is lead with the best.
Don't save the best for last.
No, this isn't a murder mystery novel. You don't build to a climax. Don't bury the headline. You start with your biggest, most impactful win. Get their attention immediately.
Like Alicia did.
Alicia was a designer wanting to be promoted to senior designer. She didn't start by talking about her day-to-day tasks. She opened with the revision rebrand project.
That was a huge project, right?
Massive. A $300,000 budget, a high-profile client, and she'd received direct praise from the client CEO. She put that right on the table in the first 2 minutes.
So she establishes her high value immediately.
Immediately. And she connected that specific success directly to the skills needed for the senior role, things like client management, strategic thinking, not just design execution. She also showed her passion. She explained why she was excited about more responsibility.
Passion is important. You don't want to sound like a robot just reading off a resume.
Not at all. You want them to feel your energy. If you aren't excited about your own promotion, why on earth should they be?
Right, but, and here comes the storm cloud. What if they say no? Or you're not ready yet? Or the classic, we just don't have the budget. This is the turbulence. This is the part everyone dreads.
Turbulence is almost guaranteed. Even the best candidates with the best cases get pushback. The most common objections are tenure, budget, or readiness.
So how do we handle that without getting defensive? Because when someone looks you in the eye and says, you aren't ready, it feels so personal.
It feels incredibly personal, but you must treat it as data. The strategy is simple, but not easy. Listen, clarify, and then problem solve with them.
Okay, let's look at Keisha. She got hit with a really specific technical objection.
She did. She was a product manager wanting to be a senior project manager. Her manager said, Keisha, we love your work, you're fantastic, but you don't have the official project management certification. Company policy says we can't promote you without it.
That sounds like a hard no, an open and shut case.
To most people, yes. They would have just said, okay, and walked away defeated. But Keisha had anticipated this exact objection.
She was ready for it.
She was ready. She didn't argue that the certification was stupid or that she didn't need it. She said, I understand that's a requirement. I have a proposal. I'm prepared to enroll immediately at my own expense. If you promote me now, I promise to be fully certified in 6 months. Or as an alternative, the company could sponsor me as part of my development in the new role.
That is bold. She basically said, promote me now, and I'll fix the one gap you've identified.
It showed such incredible initiative and problem solving that the manager was blown away. He not only promoted her on the spot, the company paid for the certification.
Wow. She turned a firm objection into a huge win.
She did. And then there's a harder feedback, the personality stuff. Let's talk about Thomas.
Oh, poor Thomas. This one hurts just to read about.
Thomas was a brilliant software engineer, technically maybe the best on his team, but his manager told him, you are great at code, Thomas, but you're dismissive in meetings. You come across as arrogant to your colleagues.
Ouch. That is the kind of feedback that just makes you want to crawl under the table or flip it over.
Your fight or flight kicks in, and Thomas fought that urge to argue, to say, no, I'm not. That is the crucial moment.
What did he do instead?
He took a breath, and then he asked for specific examples. He acknowledged the blind spot, saying, I genuinely wasn't aware I was coming across that way. And then he proposed a coaching plan. He asked for help. He said, I want to fix this. What can I do?
That is incredible maturity, to not get defensive there.
And that maturity, that coachability, is exactly what a leader needs. By accepting the difficult feedback so gracefully, he proved he was ready for leadership in a way his technical skills never could.
Coachability is a leadership trait. I like that. So we've handled the objections. Now, the final loss. Show me the money talk.
This is where people get really, really awkward. The cardinal rule is sequencing. Value first, price second.
So you establish that you're getting the job before you start haggling over the salary.
Yes. Get them to agree in principle. Yes, you are the right person for this director role. Then you can discuss what a director is paid. If you start with, I want $100,000, the entire conversation becomes about the money, not about your value.
What if they agreed to the promotion, but they don't bring up compensation?
Then you can't leave that room without addressing it. You have to pivot and say, that's fantastic news. Can we discuss what this promotion looks like in terms of compensation?
And you better have your numbers ready. No guessing.
Patricia sure did. She was going for a director of operations role. She didn't just pick a number out of the air. She did her homework. Glassdoor, industry surveys, talking to recruiters. She knew her market value down to a pretty tight range.
And she didn't ask for a single number, did she? That's a key detail.
No, she asked for a range. This is a great negotiation tactic. She said, based on my research for this role in our industry and city, a competitive salary would be in the $125,000 to $135,000 range.
So that shows flexibility, but it also sets a clear floor. The negotiation can't start below $125,000.
Absolutely. And the result? The manager came back and offered $128,000 plus an increased performance bonus. Because she had data, her request was respected. If she had just said, I'd like a bit more money, they might have given her a token 3% raise and called it a day.
Data-backed requests get respect. Okay, we are nearing the end of the meeting. We've talked value, we've talked money, we're in the aftermath. How do we close this thing properly?
You never, ever leave the room with a vague outcome. If you walk out thinking, I think that went well, you have failed.
Ouch. Okay.
You need to summarize and confirm next steps. So just to confirm, you will speak to HR by Friday and get back to me early next week.
Lock it down. Get a concrete timeline.
And if it's a not yet, which happens a lot, you need a specific timeline for a revisit.
This is what James did.
Yes, James was in a tricky spot. The company was going through a big restructuring. The outcome was uncertain. It wasn't a no, but it certainly wasn't a yes.
The dreaded limbo.
So James took control of the ambiguity. He locked in a 2-month follow-up date. He said, I understand things are in flux. Can we put a meeting on the calendar for October 1st to revisit this? And he got agreement on a plan for him to work on specific relationships in the meantime.
So smart. He kept the promotion active rather than letting it die in the chaos of the restructuring.
He didn't let the maybe turn into a never. And finally, let's talk about the happy ending. The Yes. You get the job.
Champagne time.
Briefly. Then it's work time. The first 90 days in your new role are absolutely critical, and there's a huge trap waiting for you.
Which is?
Trying to change everything immediately to prove you deserve the job.
Ah, the new sheriff in town syndrome. I'm in charge now. Here are all the new rules.
It alienates everyone. Your first 90 days should be about listening, learning, and building relationships, especially with your new peers and your direct reports.
Terrence is our model here, right?
Yes.
He was just promoted to department head.
He was, and he could have walked in on day one and reorganized the entire department to put his stamp on it.
The temptation must have been huge.
Immense. Instead, he spent his first month doing nothing but one-on-one meetings, listening, asking questions like, what's working well, and what's the one thing you would change if you were me?
So people felt heard before they were led.
Precisely. So when he finally did start to make changes a couple of months later, the team supported him because they felt he understood them and their challenges. They felt like they were part of the process. If he had rushed, he would have faced a rebellion.
Be humble. That is such great advice for that transition period.
It's everything.
Yeah.
So if we step back and look at this whole journey, what does it really tell us?
It tells me that a promotion discussion is. It's a campaign, not a singular event. It requires the iceberg approach. 90% of the work is the preparation under the surface for that 10% conversation that everyone sees.
It really is an iceberg. That's the perfect analogy. All the work, the portfolio, the data, the networking, the gap analysis, it happens under the surface for weeks or months, long before the meeting. The meeting is just the visible tip.
That's a great visual to keep in mind.
And here's a provocative thought to leave you with. Even if the answer is no,
Okay.
even if you do all of this work, build the perfect case, and they still say, not now, a well-handled promotion discussion transforms your reputation.
How so? Even if you fail?
Because it shows you are ambitious, it shows you are strategic, it shows you are professional, and that you take your career seriously. You have put yourself on the radar in a whole new way. Sometimes the no today is just the first step toward a much bigger yes 6 months from now.
You've changed how they see you, from just a worker to a potential leader.
You've changed the entire game. It's never a waste of time.
That is so powerful. It's never a waste of time to advocate for yourself professionally.
Never.
Well, I have to say, my palms are a little less sweaty now. I feel like I actually have a blueprint for this.
That was the goal.
Thank you so much for breaking this all down with us. And to you listening, if you found these strategies helpful, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We want to help as many people as possible navigate these tricky but critical conversations.
Indeed. Good luck with your discussions.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.